trolley, which was made in 1955. Um, I'm taking it completely apart, including the bottom assembly. I took all the parts out, and this thing was gooked up with tons of purplish grease. You really don't have to grease these things like much. You only need to oil the little bearings, which you can get at with the two sets of wheels here. And then the worm gear here only has to be lightly greased. And I use this grease, which I find to be pretty good. This number 105 lubricate. And then I have this oil. Actually, the label fell off, so I don't know what it is, but you can find those things online. So I'm continuing to clean it up. Basically, I took everything out of the assembly, and you have the little bumper assembly. You can see some of the grease that's still left over. There's no reason to have grease like this all over the place. It just doesn't serve any purpose. You only put grease in a few points, like the little gear here for the little rotating power pickup at the top, which is just kind of something that flips back and forth. And yeah, so also I took the collars, the pickups out and cleaned that all up with alcohol. And so this is the progress I'm making so far. I'll show you as I put it together. Okay, so it's pretty much as clean as I can get it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some grease on the worm gear, and I'm going to put some grease on the worm gear. And then I'm going to roll this around to kind of get the grease distributed on the worm gear. Alright, and then the armature in and rotate a bit. I already cleaned the brush plate with some alcohol, and alright, next step is I'm putting the collector assembly back in. The wire for that runs through this little hole, and then this copper spring here basically is what provides the ground to the little sliding mechanism, so that spring is oriented like that. I put a tiny bit of grease under where it hits the axle. It should still make electrical contact. So I'm doing that. I got my gear all lubed up, have the wire for the motor coming out. So next step, I'm going to put in the slide assembly. And like that, you can see there's this little notch for the motor hole, or not the motor hole, but the motor wire. It just slides in. I started on the right side here first, and then put in the left side. You notice that the armature, the plastic that insulates it from the laminations, is kind of melted. So whoever had this before ran it hard, and you know, the wheels were so stuck. Like one axle was totally seized up with the dried up grease. So I imagine they were trying to drive this thing hard. I think it's going to be all right. The light back in place. The little rod for the pickup at the top spins around, fits in a gear in the sliding mechanism. The screw on the right is a little longer for the light than the one on the left. How this works basically is the field coil is wound in two directions with two wires, and it just simply grounds the field to one of the others. So the field's wound in one direction for one of the wires and the other direction for the other, and then the center tap of the field is connected to this brush, and then the brush on the right is connected to the hot, including the light bulb. And so basically that's how it works. It doesn't have a 3-position E unit, it just has a double wound armature. What's interesting about the trolley is that it's geared really slow, much slower than like the gang car. There's a big worm gear in it, and it runs pretty slow. Right now it's at 15 volts. And that's all the faster it goes, which it's kind of cute. It does say in the source manual that it was kind of prototyped over 35-mile-an-hour speeds, so they have it geared a lot lower. This before wasn't going anywhere with all the grease and the one frozen axle. Wasn't doing anything. And now it's running pretty good. It sounds pretty smooth. It's actually much smoother sounding than a gang car, which makes a lot more noise in my opinion. So it's pretty cool. I'm pretty pleased with relubing it, and it's running great. I mean, it's 1955. It's 70 years old almost, and it's working great. So I'm pleased. Trolley cover back on or off. You see these two recessed areas? They fit in the end of the car. There's nibs on either end, and then you just slide it on like that, and then you attach one screw on the bottom. See how the car body's in these ends there, and then there's the one screw here, and that's it. Then the last thing is to put the little canonary on, which you notice slides back and forth depending on which way you bump the bumper, which is kind of fun. Alright, let's put it on the track. Right now it's at 12 volts. Here we go, and we can reduce the speed down to about 8 volts, and it still runs. So I think I got it lubed up good, and it's so cute the way it goes slow. I have a new trolley that's like a little speed demon. Here I got it at 6.7 volts, and it's still driving along. Has a nice little post-war growl to it, but it really goes nice and slow. I love it. This is the trolley at 18 volts. Not incredibly fast. The light bulb is really bright. Probably burn out. So that's 18 volts. This is 14 volts. This is 11 volts. It's so much quieter than a gang car, even though it's basically the same motor. And this is at 8 volts. Just crawls around nicely at that low voltage. It still moves great.